I'm actually really nervous about getting this one right, just because it is Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah, I'm in actually a strange spot too with what to do.
I guess we could start with a reintroduction. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Waffle Press Retrospective, or I guess a new season, because we're going to start breaking these up into seasons, depending on what series we're talking about. So happy Amblin. It's on hiatus. Season 1 is complete. It'll probably be just as many seasons as this show we're here to discuss, and we don't really talk about TV shows here too often. I think the last time we did was Hannibal with my friend and co-host, Matt Garingo.
Yeah, that's me. We talked about Hannibal once, which I've also been rewatching. Because recently, both the show we're here to discuss today and Hannibal have been added to Netflix.
Yeah, it's just like Tumblr in 2014, the glory days. Or was that the glory days? I don't know. Maybe it was earlier than that.
I think I remember 2012 being the glory days.
That might be it. That was like the height of Walking Dead popularity and everything too. So yeah, that seems about right.
Yeah, it was before like Supernatural and Doctor Who like all like had a massive downturn.
Oh yeah.
And it was also pointedly, and unfortunately, I gotta go here this early. It was an election year. And
oh yay!
It was the year we all dunked on Mitt Romney for being a rich guy. Remember he said binders full of women? That was memed a lot. And then, or if you were my friend in 2012, I was the insufferable guy being like, Obama's drone warfare is a war crime.
This is supposed to be our family-friendly episode.
Yeah, we're already off the rails.
That's okay. We're here to talk about Avatar: The Last Airbender, speaking of war crimes.
100 years ago, a powerful being was frozen alive, and the world fell into darkness. Now he's back for some unfinished business.
Will you go penguin sledding with me?
Meet Aang. He's 12, and he's the only one who can save the world from the forces of destruction. Did we mention that he's 12? Avatar: The Last Airbender. The legend begins whether he's ready or not. Premiering Monday, February 21st at 7/6 Central on Nickelodeon.
Penguin!
But the show itself is not a war crime, though it does feature them. And I don't know if I'm going to keep in the opening. I did when we started recording this, but I am genuinely more nervous about messing up this retrospective than any other one, because I think this is the greatest animated series of all time. I don't think that's an unpopular opinion, but this is a show very near and dear to my heart, and having rewatched every episode like a dozen times by this point in my life, I still just want to do it justice. And also maybe talk about how the first season does take a minute to kind of get going.
Oh, I disagree.
I mean literally like a minute. I do not mean that there's nothing wrong at the forefront of this series. I want to make some things clear. I'm going to be a little tough because like I said, I truly believe this is the greatest animated series of all time.
Mm-hmm.
But
I like
I
it
think
too.
There's some stuff. Okay. Oh, you do not feel the same.
No. All right. Here's the truth. I love this series. I wish it was as big as Star Wars. Maybe not, considering how the Star Wars fan base has been lately.
Oh,
but...
well, we will get to that divisive fandom stuff, because we're not just going to talk about The Last Airbender. We will be talking about the film. I'm going to try to convince Matt to talk about James Cameron's Avatar, because that's actually kind of important to the production history of the Avatar cartoon.
Yeah.
And then Legend of Korra.
Here's how important it is. They had to change the name. There.
Look.
There. We covered it. James Cameron's Avatar was so big that they had to change the name of the movie adaptation and future adaptations. Because even though this is technically the Avatar franchise, it has been supplanted by another Avatar franchise.
We're still going to talk about the movie. I'm going to make it happen.
All right, sure, fine.
Okay.
I kind of wanted to save that for James Cameron's own retrospective leading up to the release of the Avatar sequels.
I mean, there's enough to talk about Avatar, but we can get into that both behind the scenes and on the show.
Yeah,
later because
listeners, we are gonna fight about this the entire time we're recording this.
it might not be resolved until after we're done with this solo retrospective, but whatever.
But what I was saying was, I wish it was as big as Star Wars in the sense that I feel like this is a world where I would love to go really deep with the lore, you know? And explore the different aspects of it and hear different stories. And I wish that it was something where after X number of years we would get a new trilogy of stories. So far we have 2.
See, I definitely agree with that, but I don't want like a trilogy of Avatar sequels. I want, or you know what, actually, yeah, a trilogy of Avatar sequels, but 4 Avatar series total. That's been my dream. Like, I don't even want to be a part of it. I just want to see that unfold. You know, so you get one from every like bender in the Avatar like status. I don't know. Like, I just think that would be really satisfying, but I don't think that's going to happen anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
But sometimes it's better to just be happy with what you got.
Oh, totally. And if you follow me on Twitter, which you probably do if you're listening to this, then you already know how I feel about this. But now I get to talk about them individually, kind of. So here's how it's going to work before we get into the meat and potatoes of these first 5 episodes. That's how we're breaking up the first season or book of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Each episode in the retrospective will cover 5 episodes in the first season, potentially 5 episodes in the second and third season as well at a time. But given how the structure starts to change in later seasons of the show, that might change. But just up front, that's the approach generally that we'll be taking on this. So the first 5 episodes we'll be discussing on Avatar: The Last Airbender are Chapter 1, The Boy in the Iceberg, Chapter 2, The Avatar Returns, Chapter 3, The Southern Air Temple, Chapter 4, The Warriors of Kyoshi, and Chapter 5, The King of Omashu. And Star Wars fans, and since we're in that wheelhouse already, will recognize the director of actually at least half of the first season. Dave Filoni directed and wrote on a bunch of Avatar: The Last Airbender's first season. But he did not stick around after that, and it's obvious why. He had to go make a Star Wars show.
He heard the call of a George Lucas.
Oh, hey, Dave, I loved your work on The Last Airbender.
I'm going to take one guy.
Because much like me, you did everything on the show, just like I did everything on the movies.
Yes, that's how film works.
Yep.
Dave Filoni, director of the Mandalorian episodes.
We don't. No, that's okay. The Clone Wars is great. Let's focus on that.
Did you see those roundtable discussions they've been doing?
Not yet, actually. I'm actually really interested in that.
They're interesting. If you like Star Wars and you like propaganda films released by the Walt Disney Corporation. That's
the big thing barring me from checking out more of the Disney documentaries.
Man, one thing. It is very disappointing that now we live in this age where, because behind-the-scenes features were so beloved during the early DVD rush, that now whenever we get behind-the-scenes stuff, they're so, crafted, and they have, a narrative to them, you know?
Yeah.
Because, if you get, Star Wars, the original trilogy on DVD, you have, the box set where they talk, we all thought the script was stupid. George almost had a heart attack in the middle of filming. It was a disaster. No one knew what they were doing, but then the movie ended up good. And now it's a movie where we know a director was fired halfway through. And then the behind the scenes is I've never seen such a well-crafted story. And what we're doing here is really making something for the fans. And because we'll get into this later, but I really think when we get to Legend of Korra deserves a documentary of just what the fuck it was like trying to make that show.
Yeah, because the circumstances were pretty different for The Last Airbender and Korra.
What's that? There's a documentary about The Emperor's New Groove. I think it's called The Hot Box or something like that. where it's an illegal documentary. Like, it could never officially be released because Disney wouldn't give permission, but it's out there. And it's basically about how Emperor's New Groove went from being Kingdom of the Sun, which was the original, like, a very serious look at, like, Incan culture and, like, this, in the tradition of, like, Disney epics, and then it became, like, the first out-and-out wacky Disney comedy. And it's interesting to see the inner workings of, like, Disney in that era.
I have not even heard of that, so I'm really interested in checking that out.
It's really good. It was on YouTube a little while back, but it's always getting, like, pulled.
I'll track it down.
You should be able to. I mean, on a torrent site or something.
But for Avatar: The Last Airbender, the show was created by Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Konietzko, with a head writer credit to Aaron Ehaz. Now, Matt, you brought up something very important. Before we head into this discussion,
we picked Avatar: The Last Airbender because, considering the climate of society right now, everything is awful. So we wanted to pick something that was a little easier and a little simpler, and maybe not made by awful, problematic assholes. So we picked Avatar: The Last Airbender, and in doing so, I found out that, to quote the Wikipedia article, in November 2019, several female former employees of Ehaz, is that how you say it? I have no idea. I apologize.
I have no idea. We probably don't even need to worry about respecting
I apologize to this asshole. But, well, you know how, like, you shouldn't, like, misgender a trans person just because they're an asshole? I feel like it's probably wrong to mispronounce someone's name, even if they're a scumbag, but I don't know.
You're probably right, yeah.
So apologies, but he worked at Riot Games, and he treated female employees like dirt. And there's been a lot of shit about Riot Games as of late. You can look into that. Makers of League of Legends, which apparently AOC made a tweet recently about playing that during the pandemic. Because her Twitter game is on fire. That's why she's popular, Diego.
Oh, that's the only reason.
The only thing about her that's resonating is that her Twitter game is on fire.
Yeah, it's not like she's pro Medicare for all and, like, basic human rights and shit.
See, she's young and hip and diverse, just like Bernie Sanders. That's why he was the nominee.
I just want healthcare.
Nope, it's the Twitter game.
But this asshole is kind of, I guess, put a damper on our excitement a little bit.
Yeah, it's something to keep in mind. Although, looking at it, it looks like he didn't directly write that many episodes. There's usually a writer's room. Let's hope that he did not stifle the creativity of a lot of women maybe working on this show.
Yeah, please. That would be awful.
I mean, all right, I'm sorry, we're not even getting into the episodes yet, and, like...
And I have a lot to say.
Yeah, this is just what's a bummer, though, about... this is why I'm having trouble kind of going back into this, which I didn't expect, honestly. Because, as Diego joked off mic with me, that this was kind of like from the peak Tumblr era, which we're both veterans of. This was one of the main, like, fandoms that was on there. And watching this just brought me back to all of that. And not in a good way.
Oh.
And not in a kind of, like, more innocent time kind of way. But also in a, we don't see the train coming down the track that's about to hit everyone. And one of the things is, and this goes up until a few years ago, where we may, like, I don't, like, single people out. I feel like a lot of hands are on the wheel, including my own, that we've started to mistake progressive victories in our pop culture for actual progressive victories.
Yeah, and I think we've actually had this discussion before, given my comments on certain films that do not even need to be named. I'm not even saying that because of my feelings on them. I'm just it's a point that has stuck with me, and this made me think a lot recently about how I approach pop culture that I admire.
Like, Avatar: Last Airbender was like one of those shows that was held up as like, this is a win for progressivism, you know? And we'll actually get into it because it gets like that stuff comes like really quick, which I was also surprised by. You know, a lot of talk of, oh, progressive win. This is one of the most progressive kid shows out there. This has a large female fan base because it seems to be much more inclusive as a show and much more welcoming than other franchises, which up until recently seemed to be a lot of sausage fests, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that thing of like, yeah, that's great, but then the head writer of the show went on to treat employees like dirt, specifically female employees. And with the wave of stuff that's been coming out, like, behind all the protests that are currently happening right now, there's also been a wave of, you know, new accusations in the comic book industry, in the video game industry, in a lot of creative fields about just how many predators and abusive assholes are in them. And a lot of them were guys who often hid themselves in the guise of promoting progressive works, you know, or elevating other voices. And it's something where, like, I love this show, and I'm going to be very positive about it, but I'm also, like, I'm very reluctant to be, like, rah-rah about it, you know?
Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with praising it as a success when on its own, like, fictional terms, like, oh, this is like a great, like, storytelling device that amplify, like reminds people to amplify things in front of the scenes, you know. Unfortunately, that behind the scenes, like, stain is something that we have to remember, you know. Just because you're enjoying a work of art doesn't mean that it needs to be worshipped blindly either. Not just because, like, on its fictional terms, obviously, we're talking about, like, the production stuff here and how people are behind the scenes and people with human lives and failings and their own things going on. There's no clear-cut praise here, I guess. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, The Boy in the Iceberg / The Avatar Returns. Again, directed by Dave Filoni, written by Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Konietzko. This is the world's introduction to Avatar. And if you're on the internet and you've even had a hint of the Avatar fandom, you know the opening, long ago, yada, yada, yada. 100 years, Fire Nation, the Avatar vanished when the world needed him most.
I want to stress this. I understand why you're giving a recap and everything, because that's what we probably should do. But if you're listening to this and you haven't watched this show, you're out of your mind. Go watch the show.
Actually, you know what? Not just to speed things along for the conversation, I would actively recommend that you watch the show and then come back and listen to us talk about the episodes.
Yes.
And then hit me up on Twitter, hit Matt up on Twitter, hit the Waffle Press up on Twitter, or whatever, in the YouTube comments, whatever. Just I love talking about this show, so just get it out there. But seriously, do not listen to these unless you've seen the episodes we're discussing.
Yeah,
so there you go. That's it.
If you're following me, feel free to message Diego too.
Yes. That's it.
Don't message me. I don't want to talk to any of you.
Definitely message Matt. Talk to him about AVPR. But anyways.
That masterpiece.
Do you remember the first time you watched the beginnings of Avatar?
I'm not sure if I remember it exactly. I remember it being very hyped. Nickelodeon put a lot into it, because I believe this is the first quote-unquote dramatic animated series that Nickelodeon was doing. And possibly only. I don't think they ever did anything serious again.
Well, they did Korra, but
they
had a little bit of buyer's remorse after that one. So,
which is
again,
strange.
That's something that'll be saved for later. But yeah, it's very fucking strange.
And I'm guessing it was Nickelodeon's attempt to cut in on Cartoon Network, which at the time was showing, like, you know, Toonami had, like, anime, which was, you know, most of those were not comedy series. They had the Justice League cartoon, which was still on. I'm guessing the big one was probably something like Samurai Jack.
Oh, yeah, Samurai Jack was around this time.
Which I think it maybe gets canceled this year. But it was like a huge critical like success. And it was like really popular among critics. It was always winning animation awards, but I think the fans didn't really stick around that one as long. But you know, trying to cut in on that market over at Nickelodeon, and maybe it didn't work because they never tried this again.
Yeah, I don't know, because like it's such a weird thing, and this is something we're always going to be able to go back to also, because I really do want to talk about like the story of these first 5 episodes, and I brought up maybe a slight criticism that I want to address. But because kids shows, it's not so much about the viewer numbers, and now we know that that how they actually like acclimated numbers is like bullshit anyways.
Yeah.
No one knows how to count anything, whatever. It's a mess. But the big point of profit for them is in selling toys. And so for this, they were always trying to push like new designs for the characters on the creators and stuff. And there's a very funny joke in a later season about that also works as a joke like in the show. But if you know why it's there, it becomes even funnier. And we'll get to it. You really can't miss it.
Well, I doubt it was made for this reason, but considering what happens in one of the episodes that we'll discuss today, there's a very funny example of maybe diversifying the outfits of these characters. But I doubt it was made for toy reasons, and I doubt there was a toy made of it. But we'll get to that one soon.
Yeah. But they also ran into this problem where they didn't market the toys and like the kids
I don't
stuff.
remember.
You think this would have been like a huge thing, because people in our age group, like everyone who's seen it universally loves this show. I'm sure there's like some person out there who's just not a fan of it, and that's fine, but we'll never get along. But like everyone knows it and likes it, or at least understands why it's so popular. So I don't get why they never made that big push at all.
Yeah, I don't remember
any
toys related to this. Do you remember when this first came on?
I don't.
Oh.
I know I watched it when it premiered. I remember seeing the "Will you go penguin sledding with me?" commercials.
Yeah, I remember that being all over the place.
Yeah, I mean it's cute. It's adorable. It's great. But I don't remember actually watching that first episode. And I like to pride myself on actually having a pretty good memory when it comes to things like that. I have no recollection. The first episode I actively remember watching was the Southern Air Temple.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, it was like I would try to tune in every Friday at a relative's house or my grandma's because she had cable too. Or I'd catch them on the marathons and they'd be like, the new season premiere, we're marathoning everything up to this point or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I'd catch up. But yeah, I don't remember watching the first 2 episodes, and they did premiere back to back February 21st, 2005, and because it is really one big story, these first 2 episodes, you know.
It's almost like enough story that you could turn it into a movie.
Oh,
we'll get to that.
Yeah.
And let me ask, this might be one of the earliest long-form storytelling children's shows introduced in the United States. Because now that seems to be the thing, you know? If you look at a lot of the animated shows on TV right now, there's like storylines, and like even something like Regular Show has like storylines that have beginning, middles, and ends that are across multiple seasons of the show. Well, yeah, I'm not even super into it. I'm just aware of it.
Whoa, I didn't know that at all.
Well, I know a lot of this just because I'm a huge Steven Universe fan, so I get a lot of like overlap with those shows.
Oh yeah. I still need to finish those last 3 seasons.
I haven't finished it either, but yeah, it's on my list. I could have watched it today, but instead I decided it would be a good idea to watch Francois Truffaut's 400 Blows.
Oh yeah, that sounds great.
Which has put me in a weird frame of mind right now. But anyway, yeah, I remember this because like up until now, it had been like the Justice League cartoon had a lot of multiple stories on it, but they were usually pretty self-contained. You know, occasionally something would happen that would shake up the status quo. And then Justice League Unlimited was like kind of the first one that had like a full storyline over an entire season. Mm-hmm. That like built up to an end where it was like Brainiac teaming up with Lex Luthor and shit.
Yeah, it was insane.
Yeah, it was actually really, really fun. And the only other examples I can think of are like, again, Toonami, which are importing shows, because like Dragon Ball Z was like, tune in next time for the exciting whatever.
Oh, actually, you know what? Jackie Chan Adventures. I think it was before this, and that had season-long arcs.
Really?
Like an ongoing narrative. Yeah. Did you never watch Jackie Chan Adventures?
You know what? I did. None of it has lasted in my brain.
Oh my god. The first 4 seasons, they hold up.
Okay. I don't know why. It just never, like, got into my head. Like, whatever it was about it. And I remember liking it as a kid. You know, it wasn't like I disliked it, but it just never stuck.
No, I get you. Oh my god. It ended 2005, so this is handing off the baton to Avatar The Last Airbender, which is a significantly better show. No disrespect to Jackie Chan Adventures.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is I think there are examples beforehand of storylines leading into each other, overarching plots and stuff that would... but even then, you could watch the episodes in chunks, you know, divorced from each other, you know? You don't need to see the previous episode to understand what's happening in the episode in front of you. And this is the first show I really remember where it was like, if you missed something, it felt like you like it was a big deal. Like it could throw you off if you missed like 1 or 2 episodes.
I completely agree, and I'll use this also to make the first, hopefully non-controversial claim that this show has no filler episodes. I think people that say that don't understand what they're talking about, and they heard it on Tumblr 10 years ago, and it never left their brain. No episode of Avatar The Last Airbender is pointless, except for maybe one, and everyone already kind of knows what it is.
You know what? I don't remember.
Okay.
Well, cause my frame of mind with the show is I remember watching it when it was on, and then I remember X number of years ago sitting down and rewatching the whole thing because I bought it on DVD. But I haven't rewatched it like multiple times. I think this will maybe be my 4th rewatch for this. So I don't... But even then, the way my brain remembers it, I always remember the seasons. I don't remember the individual episodes.
I used to be like that too, but then I've seen it so much that I can kind of remember every little detail, which is whatever, you know. I don't have a life anymore.
We're going to have to challenge you on that no filler thing as we go on. But I do hate the term filler episode.
It's ridiculous, right? It's like any show worth its salt will never waste your time, period. You know?
Well, the worst is that it's usually used when they mean like no big event happened in this episode.
Yeah,
but that's but most shows are like that. You know, that's...
I think it comes, or it stems at least, from a lot of like attempts at critical analysis that like prefer plot over character stuff. You know, it's like, well, what's the episode about? Like, is it moving the story along? It's like, well, it's moving these characters' lives along. That's why you watch the show, right? So it's not wasting your time.
That's why I think Steven Universe is kind of a perfect show, because like a lot of that, it's like they almost embrace the filler episode nature of it, but there's always like an emotional arc that's huge, even if what's happening is incredibly mundane. And I think sometimes even fans of that show don't understand that. Where they'll walk away and be like, yeah, it was just Steven, you know, helping with pizza deliveries. But meanwhile, it's like, oh, he opened up this other side of his personality. And this will be a big deal.
He helped Lars come to terms with something or whatever, you know?
Yeah. And it kind of amazes me that flies over so many people. It would be like sitting down and being like, yeah, you can skip most of Star Trek The Next Generation Season 3. Just watch the Borg episodes. You know?
That would be like... I mean, honestly, if I was a writer on either of those shows or any of the shows were mentioned, and I heard someone say like, oh yeah, like the season's so good there was hardly any filler, I'd be like, that's insulting. Like, do you know how much work went into, like, every individual minute of any television show, let alone animated ones that take years and years and years to craft from the ground up?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because the original pitch for this show, you know, like, they conceived it, like, in 2002 or something like that, and it only aired for the first time in 2005. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, I know there was a long road to it. And also, it's that thing of, again, with filler episodes, if I really love the show, I'm gonna love the filler episodes. Because when I really, really love something, I've mentioned it before, like, where I always want, like, my mythical great Marvel film where it's just those characters hanging out, which is, like, all I really want at this point. I don't need them to fight anyone anymore. Because that's always the most boring stuff in those movies.
I know.
But, so it's like, what would be considered a filler where it's like, oh, we gotta have a party or something. That would be my favorite episode, probably.
And Avatar: The Last Airbender has a couple of those. But first, it does not. First, it has to get the story going. And I will say, I think it is cute and good. And just knowing where the show ends up, a little slow. And I don't mean bad at all. I don't mean anything negative. I just can't divorce the show I know it as it comes to be as what it was when it starts. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I hope I'm not being too harsh or cruel.
I don't know. I did get that feeling too, but I think it's just because if we look at it from the perspective of the hero's journey bullshit, having gone through the series, it's just weird to go back to the beginning when we know what's coming. Because it almost feels like a very mundane start, you know? It doesn't... it's not what the series will be known for later. But I think, like Star Wars, this is one of the shows where when you starts out, they give you enough information to understand what's going on, but also hint at things where you go, oh, they have this whole world figured out before it even starts.
Mm-hmm.
And you get the sense of the bigger story happening outside of it, which is always what gets me excited about things.
I think what really surprises me every time I go back to this, apart from just being like, again, not to be harsh, it's hard for me to separate it. Apart from me just being like, it's cute, but it's not the show that I know it becomes, is that the characters are so well defined right off the bat. Yeah. And how much they go through emotionally in the first 3 episodes alone. You know? It feels like entire movies or television seasons and other, like, lesser programs, it takes them much longer to get to where they are at the end of, like, the first 3 episodes alone. And that's, like, remarkable.
But we start off with Katara and Sokka, brother and sister.
Sokka! Did you say Sokka?
Oh, did I say it wrong?
Yes. Hey. Sokka.
Oh my God. How should I say it? I don't care.
Sokka.
Sokka. I thought I said that.
No.
Well, you know what distracted me? You know what distracted me? In the sequel series, he was voiced by Chris Hardwick.
I know.
I didn't know that. I totally forgot that.
No, shout out to my pal Angie Han, who just went through this series for the first time too. She was like, should I start Korra? And then she was like, oh wait, Sokka, her favorite character, is voiced by Chris Hardwick. She was like, maybe I'll wait.
Don't worry. Only in flashbacks, right?
Yeah, but still, that's pretty rough. Okay, so brother and sister Katara and Sokka, siblings from the Southern Water Tribe, get into a spat because Sokka starts off the show as a straight-up misogynist.
Definitely, but it's also like, again, it's so interestingly defined where he's trying to fill his father's place because he's the only, like, somewhat adult male left in the village because they've all gone off to war.
Oh, no, totally. Yeah, like, everything is really well defined in their, like, the characters' identities and stuff. And just we get some backstory about Katara being the only waterbender in the South
Yeah.
Pole, and Sokka's just kind of brushing it off like, you're weird magic, weirdo freak. And when she like has enough of it, you get the immediate sense that this is not the first time, obviously, right? But when she's lashing out at him, like angrily in response,
She straight up calls him a sexist.
yeah,
Which feels
and-
like if it was done today, there would be like 50 dudes screaming in the webcams about this woke propaganda being forced upon our children or something.
I mean, yeah, but also the show is clearly like in support of her because that action allows them to discover Aang frozen in the ice.
Yeah.
So I mean, watching that was really exciting. I was like, oh my god, I forgot how well that's just like realized.
One thing I forgot was his reaction to her waterbending, like calling it magic and stuff like that. I forgot that where there's almost a vibe. I don't remember how long they keep this, but because of the war with the Fire Nation, that there's almost like a dying of, the other benders is like a common thing in the world, especially in the Southern Water Tribe, which feels like it's not in the best place currently.
No, I mean, it's like, I didn't understand this at first, but is the implication that the South Pole is it's not just that little tribe, right? It's like little pockets of places, or is it just that little tribe?
I'm guessing there's more, but it felt like, I don't know, actually. Who knows? I'm honestly a little confused about what the Southern Water Tribe is supposed to look like at its peak.
I don't know, but we do end up seeing it in Korra. Spoiler alert,
Yeah,
I guess. Sorry, everyone. But
I'll have to pay more attention when I watch it there.
But you do bring up an interesting point, and I think that was almost like the intention, like to go the straight up Star Wars route, like, oh, bending, I haven't heard that in a long time kind of deal. And then like how they end up playing it is very different and becomes almost like class conscious when you look at like the bending of like the North Pole and other areas of the world that we'll get into. And how like nature versus nurture becomes a big thing, and there's a lot going on in the show, and they set it up like really organically.
It's also like a fracturing of the different elements, because without the Avatar around, there's no one really to bring the four different types of bending together, which I think is important. Yeah, it's an interesting start.
If someone's not like in love with the show from these first couple episodes, I would still heartily encourage them to continue. I saw some really dumb article that was like, don't start at the beginning. Start at the episode in season 2, blah, 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 and then go back to the beginning so you can see the potential of the show realized. And whoever wrote that, I sincerely hope your fingers like break for a day.
Whoa.
That's,
whoa. That's a little harsh, my man.
Maybe it is, but that is just like,
it's a very bad take, but
yeah. Okay, fine. No harm befall you. But like, wow, cannot believe some people.
I can't think of a better show where I would just be like, start at the beginning.
Yeah,
like I showed my younger brother Wrath of Khan yesterday, and he hasn't seen any Star Trek stuff, and so like I was breaking down like what to watch, and that's one where you always have to be like, I can't think of a series where I'm like, I could just be like, I start at episode 1 and just watch it.
Yeah.
Where it's like the old Star Trek, it would be like, look up a best of list. And then it's like TNG, it's like you could probably skip most of the first 2, just start at season 3. And then it's like Deep Space Nine, it's like, look up some stuff you gotta see from the first 2 seasons, but then just start at 3. Most of the Star Trek shows, you gotta start at season 3.
Yeah, I think only the original series is the only one you start at 1 and 2 and then stop at 3.
Yeah.
It's like the inverse.
And how is Discovery on season 3 yet?
They're heading into season 3 for this fall. I finally saw the premiere.
Because it's been very rocky, in my opinion.
Well,
but
I saw the premiere. Anyways, so back to Avatar: The Last Airbender. The
other show.
the other show. Where are we going with that? Just
Well,
serialized nature?
I was just talking about how this is like one of the few shows where I could say you could start at episode 1, no qualifiers. Like, I don't have, there's nothing where I have to say skip X number of episodes. You can just start, just go.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
All right, thanks for that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Okay, so after Katara and Sokka free Aang, and he's just this little boy in the ice who wants to go penguin sledding and has no idea that a war's been going on for 100 years, or that he is the last Airbender. We also get to meet his flying bison.
Yeah, he's been frozen for 100 years, which is that's how that works.
Yeah. Don't CinemaSins this.
Well, no, I'm just no. What I'm really saying is like, there's a lot of stuff here with like the Avatar state in these first few episodes, but they don't define what that is yet, which is interesting.
Oh yeah, I guess they don't, huh?
Because I feel like there'd be pressure more these days to either define it or turn it into a big mystery box. Whereas here it's just something that happens, and then they're like, "Man, that was weird." And then they just move on.
I mean, every season of Avatar is, subtitled book whatever, right? Mm-hmm. This one's obviously book 1, Water. And it really does play out like a long book, though. Not to get into a whole, it's not a TV show, it's actually whatever bullshit.
David Simon, creator of The Wire.
Oh, whatever the fuck.
I think that's his name. I could be wrong.
No, it is. It's David Simon.
All right.
I love The Wire. But anyways, you get what I'm saying, right? Like it does take its time with its story, and it doesn't rush anything along just for the audience to be satisfied with something immediately. And this is a trend that the show will continue as it,
Not to
progresses.
invoke something we've all completely and rightfully turned on in recent months, but it does kind of remind me of the first few Harry Potter books in a weird way.
I was like, what did Joss Whedon do now?
Okay, yeah. Like there's like 7 dozen people in like the last month who have all had their like full ass out. Like it's just and masks off. They're all racists and turfs. Like,
yeah, so they can all go fuck themselves. But I like your point.
Yeah, but like the first like Sorcerer's Stone, where it's like a lot of it is very much like, Harry goes to this weird location, and something weird happens. Like, he gets all these letters one day. That was weird. And then it's like, now he's in this weird wand shop. That's crazy. And like that's like the first book almost entirely. Like to the point where even when you're getting into the climax, it's mostly just like the different chambers leading up to the Sorcerer's Stone.
Yeah, and you're like, more new places? Like
yeah. And then like 3 starts getting a little like overarching story, and then 4 just gets crazy with they murder a child at the end of it. Which is like, that was like the cool wave of writing Harry Potter, where like you started out like it's kind of like every other book you were reading at the time, and then in 4 it just gets crazy.
Yeah.
Too bad J.K. Rowling's a fucking turf.
Yeah, fuck off. No turfs in the chat.
No turfs. Not welcome. My cat got up and left at the mention of J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, hell yeah, cat.
Well, I don't know if there's anything in the opening you have to talk about, but we eventually have to get to Zuko.
Zuko, voiced by Dante Bosco.
Who everyone loves, apparently, I guess.
Yeah, everyone likes Hook.
Oh, yeah, that's what he was in. I was like, why was he popular again?
Rufio.
Yeah. Rufio. Too bad we never got to that in Happy Amblin, so we could talk about how Hook's a fucking weird movie.
Oh, it's very bizarre. But we also have to mention Zuko's uncle, Uncle Iroh, voiced by the late, great Mako, who is no longer with us, of course, but maybe the most lovable character, or at least maybe the most lovable war criminal in all of animated history.
Talk about, like, not playing your card early with that character, because
God,
in these first few episodes when he's in it, you kind of just think he's like the bumbling comic relief villain, Like, he's knocking over shit in the guy's room, and he's like, oh, but my tea's ready, and he's like, he's always wanting food. Because, like, you really think he's like, all right, this is so when we have to hang out with the villains, it's not, like, too extreme for children. Like, that's what it feels like for these first 5 episodes.
No, it totally does. And Zuko's like, oh, my honor, blood and vengeance. And then, you know, Uncle's like, I'm going to play music with our band.
Yeah.
like, no, it totally is ridiculous. But I guess we can just kind of like ebb and flow with the rest of these episodes. Because, again, we kind of expect everyone to just keep up with us when they watch it on their own terms.
Yeah, this is definitely one where we're not going to, like, just dig into the plot super deep. You're going to have to... You're going to have to watch the show.
There are some times where I feel that we will have to, specifically towards the end of the first season.
Oh, yeah, especially. Yeah.
But I want to say this for 2 points, because the plot is pretty loose at the beginning of this show. And I know there's a lot of critical discussion about the series that says Avatar: The Last Airbender really comes to its own with The Storm, which is episode 12 of this first season. I disagree. I think, even though I was kind of ragging on it a little bit, it comes to its own with the Southern Air Temple. And not just because I have a little nostalgia for that being the first one I remember watching. I think just in terms of like a visual color palette and its color design, that one really stands out with like the contrasting of the Fire Nation showdown at sunset with like the purples and blues and pinks of the Air Temple with Aang and Sokka and Katara. I think that episode's like where the art design really like, oh, this isn't gonna be like any other show we've seen in our like generation. This is really like a distinct project with its own designs and like atmosphere.
And this also feels like the moment where Aang goes from being like kind of just like this happy-go-lucky, almost like audience surrogate character, because he's being introduced to things that have not happened and that have happened in the 100 years since he's been frozen, to suddenly it's like, oh, he's got like this whole internal struggle going on with not wanting to be the Avatar. You know, he just wanted to be this kid. And then like all of this was thrust upon him. Almost like Jesus.
What?
It's a thing in the Bible.
I know Jesus is.
No, I don't mean Jesus is a thing in the Bible. I mean, like, Jesus finds out as a child that he's Jesus, and then, like, it suddenly skips ahead to him in his 30s.
Oh.
And it's like, oh, that kid probably went through a lot.
Well, I mean, even at the end of the second episode of the 2-part little premiere, you know, like, Katara and Sokka, after rescuing him from Zuko, who we should talk a little bit more about right now. You know, they're asking him, why didn't he tell them that he was the Avatar? You know, like, he's been gone for 100 years. What happened? And he's like, I never wanted to be. You know, like, it wasn't his choice. And so I used to be very vocal about being anti, like chosen one narratives. And I was like, it's boring. It's because then you know how it's all going to play out. And that was me being stupid and closed-minded and stuff, right? And I think as long as you pay attention to, like, the character interiority of your story, like, you could basically do whatever you want. Like, that's my take now.
Well, the chosen one narrative usually sucks because it's usually a way for the author to go, it's about this guy, without doing, like, the effort to get you to care.
Yeah, it's when someone says, like, oh, it was their destiny, and it's like, okay, but why? You know?
I mean, that's also the problem with, like, to bring it back to Harry Potter. Harry Potter's like a boring fuck. He's only the main character because he's the chosen one, but he's like the least interesting part of those books, which is like weird that we don't really talk about that. That like one of the most popular franchises ever has like the worst lead character ever. Not in terms of being
not the worst.
Not in terms of being an awful person, just in terms of being like a complete blank.
He's definitely surrounded by much more interesting characters. And I like that the last story in that 7-part series also acknowledges that.
Yeah.
There's a more interesting guy over there. Well, whatever.
Yeah. Remember when we didn't have to know everything about J.K. Rowling?
Yeah, like, she would have still been a terrible person if she just stopped tweeting, but, like, imagine if she just didn't tweet. It's like, you could be a terrible person in private. You don't have to attack everyone whose existence you disagree with.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Fucking monster.
Again, I keep mentioning this, but what's crazy about her breakdown recently, which I'm going to call it a breakdown to be charitable, is it reveals how much of her free time is spent thinking about these things. You know, like, remember when we did the Hannibal retrospective and I suddenly started dropping all these facts I know about serial killers? And it's like, oh no, Matt spends a lot of time thinking about serial killers in his free time. Which now that's like a hip thing to do, I guess, but I was doing it before it was cool.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's really normal then.
Yeah. Listen, anyway. But it's just like, it reveals like, oh, she's thinking about this thing, like, when she's just sitting by herself in the house, like, in her giant mansion. This is what she thinks about. That is very sad, in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is important to remember that, like, she doesn't deserve our sympathy by any means, because she is clearly just a rich, awful person who needs to just stop at all costs. Mm-hmm. But I think it is okay to share just a moment of empathy and be like, that is a little sad. You have, like, everything, and you're still so hateful at people who just struggle to exist without you making it even harder.
While I definitely agree about having, like, a bit of empathy, it's kind of crazy that literally the world is being destroyed by people all like that.
No, yeah. I'm not saying to extend an olive branch in any capacity or anything. But
like it's just nuts. Like, it's like, you know, again, a problem with shows like this a little bit is that all the villains on it tend to have like these deep, complicated motivations. And literally, we have people that are the villains of the world that are like, my dad didn't hug me enough. And so I'm gonna blow up the whole fucking world.
Funny that you mentioned that exact thing, which we will return to in about 2 seasons.
Now.
and also now. Because Zuko, banished Prince of the Fire Lord, and probably one of my favorite characters in anything ever, is doomed to search the world for the Avatar. So it was basically just like, he's in exile and he'll never be able to return home. So
he was given like a nothing mission because he wasn't expected to actually accomplish anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he suddenly does, then it actually ends up making things worse for him, which is really interesting. But I like how that's slowly pieced out, because he's kind of just the villain in the first 2 episodes. And then slowly we start like putting the pieces together of, oh, he's been forced out here because no one likes him. And he's kind of been put on his own. And that's when you start getting the glimpses of Uncle Iroh kind of being like this voice of reason in his life. Or at least trying to be.
The show gets more into it too, but, you know, he did commit war crimes.
Yeah.
like I love Iroh, but, you know.
That's a weird thing that unfortunately, a lot of, like, genre media, especially like high fantasy, where it's, because I love me villain who becomes like part of the gang at some point. Like, I love that arc, but it's also like a thing of like how many times we forgive like the worst shit. Like, where it's like, oh yeah, war criminals, all right, but he had some sort of connection now, and how he wears a different shirt and his hair's in a different thing. So I guess he's cool now. Like, I think Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z is like the perfect example of that.
We'll have to save for Dragon Ball Z discussion.
Never gonna happen.
I've never seen it all the way through or anything. So
well, you know what? Not to dunk on Dragon Ball Z, which I'm definitely opening up a can of worms if we go there. But one thing, I've tried to revisit Dragon Ball Z because that was a big part of my childhood. But one thing that's made it very difficult is that's a show where like most of the episode is characters like standing around yelling at each other, and then they'll like briefly fight. You know, and because you kind of remember it as like this action-packed series, and it's usually like long conversations with bursts of action. It plays a little differently now, but this is a show where the action really delivers. That's something that I think goes under-discussed with this, maybe, where the action on this show is fantastic, like right from the get-go.
I will go to bat for this forever. I think the third episode is where I think most people come to terms with, like, oh, this show really is not pulling punches, like, with its creativity. Because, like, the showdown that Zuko has with Commander Zhao, when they're, like, you know, because no one gives a shit about Zuko except for Uncle Iroh, and Zhao is just, like, a horrible asshole who wants to burn a child. Because the protagonists are children. It's important to remember that.
Yes.
Which is, like, crazy fucked up. That fight is, like, really good. And it's not that complicated, but it's so, like, exciting. Like, the visual, like, angles and, like, the dynamic, like, movements of the characters is really great.
Well, even just Aang escaping from the Fire Nation ship in, like, the second episode is, like, fantastic.
Yeah.
And it really shows that, like, that's kind of like the on the surface secret formula. Like, we could talk about all this depth, but there's plenty of stories with depth, and sometimes we kind of focus on that when we ignore the fact that, like, oh, actually, no, all these powers are kind of, like, really cool. It's like, on the surface, like, Star Wars rules because space battles are awesome and laser sword fights are really cool. Now, there's, of course, a lot more to Star Wars, but we can't ignore that that's kind of the thing that gets butts in seats.
Yeah.
And here it's like all the bending stuff on the show is always, like, really fantastic and fun to watch. It's never boring.
Yeah, which kind of actually is a good way to jump into the Warriors of Kyoshi Chapter 4, which just further, like, continues elevating everything, because then Sokka has to confront, like, his own, like, misogynistic tendencies, and, like I agree with your point that, like, oh, he's trying to man up in a way that is basically just toxic, because it's not actually, like, helpful. And so he gets humble real quick when he gets his butt handed to him. But I think that's why kind of Sokka wasn't all there for me in the first two episodes. He doesn't have a conflict, really. Like, not a big one. Not a big one, I guess. Not a direct, in the moment conflict. There's something happening with the character.
Well, he's kind of bumbling in the first two episodes.
Yeah, and I love Sokka because he just continues to bumble, but he's not an idiot.
There's a real sadness, though, in the first episodes of him trying to, like, be the warrior and just failing entirely.
Yeah, like, yeah, because he's just a boy.
Yeah, it is sad. But like you said, yeah, we get in, and I don't want to downplay the Warriors of Kyoshi. This gets weird really quick. Maybe weird's not the right word, but, like, I didn't expect it to go where it goes in a not overt way, to the point where, like, it feels like one of those things where maybe the makers of it, I don't know, they must have known what they were doing. Because this is an episode where it's very, like, oh, they run into, like, some women warriors, which is, like, a common thing on shows like this. And so it turns into that thing where, like, the guy's like, oh, how'd these guys beat us? And it's like, we're not guys, we're women, you know? And it's like, oh, women can fight too. But it goes deeper than that in this episode, which, one, by the end of it, he is wearing their ceremonial armor, which is made for women. So by the end of it, he is dressing up as a woman, and it's like something where it's like, no, that's powerful. It's not like, you know, the women in this aren't, like, shedding their, it's not the thing where it's like, oh, they're a tomboy because they wear jeans or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're still wearing overtly feminine clothing, but they're still warriors. But then on top of that, they're the Warriors of Kyoshi because the village is named after the Avatar Kyoshi, right? Who was a woman. And in that moment, it's like, oh, Aang is like, hey, I was a woman in a past life. Like, that's kind of like that. Maybe it's just me from the year 2020 looking at it, but that's a really interesting thing to throw into a children's show in the year 2005.
I think it's great. I know you're agreeing, but, like, it's one of those things that you go back at this show and you're watching it and you're still entertained, and it just hits you that this show is operating on levels that you can't really fathom until you've experienced a little more of life yourself.
Yeah. And it's just that thing of, like, I didn't, because again, I watched this when it aired. That stuff didn't register with me, like, on, it wasn't like I walked away with it with like suddenly an understanding of like, non-binary genders or something like that. But it definitely must have registered in some way in my brain. But I did it like coming back to me, it was like, whoa, like I just didn't expect it that early in the show. And it feels like something even progressive for right now. Like I feel like if an episode did something like this right now, it would still be really cool. But this was 2005.
So many people would be so mad online right now, and they would still need to be ignored, obviously. But I just know those same people that unabashedly love The Last Airbender, at least a handful of them are going on to be like, Brie Larson's on YouTube now? And they just don't get the messages of the show. Not that the messages themselves are like going to be 100% pure or anything like that all the time, like we've been talking about, but...
Well, I'm also willing to bet a lot of those people probably have a video up called How Legend of Korra Ruined Avatar. We'll get into that, but I mean, that is something that will get interesting.
I'm just going to be I'm mad all the time now about everything.
I'm not mad all the time. Again, not to approach it from an empathetic angle, but whenever I see stuff like that, it's like, oh my god, I just wish you could enjoy this like I enjoy it. Like, there's a thing going around, I shared it the other day, where someone has uploaded a 3-hour critique of The Force Awakens, and that's like one part of like a series they've been doing.
Oh my god.
And it's like, dude, like, I'm sorry you don't like the movie. I wish you did, but you gotta move on at some point. And like, you're just hurting yourself at this point. And again, and to bring it back to like how dudes would be outraged about this today, I think that's more evidence of that a lot of what is fucking up our society right now is how algorithm-based things are. Because it elevates that sort of hate that would have probably not risen up in a pre-YouTube, pre-algorithm YouTube world.
That's really depressing, but I also think insightful and kind of optimistic, because I think YouTube's going to die in the next decade.
Yeah, or either that or we all are.
Oh yeah, it's up in the air at the moment, but I'm optimistic.
Sure.
I'm trying here.
I literally have. I've literally for the past like 2 weeks, I have been actively planning my exit strategy for the United States.
Speaking of exit strategies, the gang doesn't get to spend too long on Kyoshi because Aang's the Avatar, and this one is really exciting for a lot of reasons, because we also get to meet Suki, who is a great character who I always wish was in the show more, but I'm also grateful she's in it as much as she is. But also, this is like the result of this episode is why they realize that Aang just can't go around being like, I'm the Avatar all the time.
Yeah.
Like, they learn very quickly that like, oh, like, it's not fair and it's a burden for him, but he can't like be himself all the time right now, not until things are made a little better, at least.
Well, Aang also learns the lesson of maybe don't be a show-off dick.
Oh, that too, yeah, because he is very cocky and trying to make Katara jealous and
yeah,
all that jazz.
Which is that's what's another weird thing about the show is that, especially in the early seasons, a lot of the conflicts are like really small, almost sitcom-y conflicts that the characters go through. But then by the end, it's like they're child soldiers. Like it's nuts. The slow burn's pretty cool.
Not even by the end of the season. Our next recording of the next 5 episodes, they got some stuff to touch on.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, not to even like criticize anymore. I actually think that's what's a benefit of the first season, is that it's slowness.
No, that wasn't a criticism from me either. That's what I love about it. I like that, because if you take your swings too early, then we're just going to get burned out.
Yeah, and I mean, how many fucking shows, like, so many great shows have like one great season, and then they stick around for a couple more, and it's like, oh yeah, that's still on.
Yeah, it's like, they should have just stopped. I mean, that's Walking Dead in a nutshell.
Oh.
Well, and that's
I was going to say Heroes.
Oh yeah, fucking Heroes, man. Was this the same year as Heroes?
I think Heroes came out like around the same time.
Man, I remember I got the first season of Heroes on DVD because like I just couldn't keep up with it when it was on TV, and I remember being up late, like all night, just watching episodes of Heroes, and just being like, "Holy shit, holy shit!" And then season 2, man, was like, "Wow, what a bummer."
Yeah. But none of these episodes are bummers, and I just want to talk about the King of Omashu really quickly because for some reason I could not tell you why. I wanted to like rewatch more of this, and I couldn't afford like the entire like season box sets. I don't even know if they had the season box sets actually. Like around the time this aired.
Oh, okay, yeah, when they aired. Now they have them, of course.
Oh no, now they have them. I'm got my finger ready to purchase the Angkora Blu-ray box set as we speak. But at the time, I wanted to just rewatch more of it, and you know I didn't have cable, so I was like, well, I have iTunes, so I just bought an episode, and I was like, oh, I'll just rewatch this one, and it was the King of Omashu. So for some reason, I've seen the King of Omashu like more times than any other episode in the first season.
Man, do you remember watching stuff on iTunes?
I do actually. I still have an iTunes account.
You know what I'm saying? But I was just thinking, like, I used to watch videos on my iPod. That seems like such a, like, you know, like an ancient notion at this point.
Oh God, yeah, and that was only like 15 years ago.
Yeah, I remember downloading when YouTube was like first getting big. I would download videos from YouTube and put them on my iPod, and I was like, I'm a genius. And then I bought connectors that I could connect the iPod to my TV, and then I could watch them on my TV. Oh, what fun we had.
Speaking of fun, The King of Omashu is not an episode that has as much going on in it, but it's a really cute, heartfelt little adventure that you don't realize is like really cute and heartfelt until the ending, because at first you're like, oh, this is like kind of horrifying.
Yeah, this, to me, it was more, this was the episode to kind of show off what earthbenders can do. Because up until now we've had airbending, firebending, and waterbending, and there was earthbending in. Was there any bending in the warriors of Kyoshi, or were they all just warriors?
No, they're all just warriors, but Aang does get to use the fans in a really cool way that I really liked.
Yeah, but this is the episode where it's like, oh, here's what the earthbenders do. Which also is kind of why it's the war that's going on seems to be primarily between the Fire Nation and the Earth Nation, and you can kind of see why in this episode.
Yeah, and really cool just like fantasy world elements with like how they use like this like shoot and pulley system by bending the earth. Yeah, and so that's how they get their like mail and their goods, and it's like the world's most exciting version of USPS.
Yeah, it's like, why'd you have to bring that up, man?
I'm sorry. I know. As soon as I said it, I was like, fuck.
Yeah. God, everything just sucks right now.
I know. I'm so sorry.
It's all fucking bullshit. Fucking people. Anyway, yeah, the earthbending's fun. No, it's another one of those great moments where it's like, oh, these people have thought out this world. Like it's clear that they were kind of sitting on these ideas for a long time before they finally got the chance to implement them.
Yeah.
And I'm sure once they started collaborating with people, everyone added their own things, but you can tell that they had enough to build off of.
Mm-hmm. And it's on the character side of things. It's nice that after that brief spat in the Southern Air Temple where Aang is like, I really am the last airbender. Like, I'm all that's left of my time. He gets to run into an old friend who is like 112 years old. Yeah. Like, it's very sweet. It's not a huge, like, in-depth episode, but it's episodes like this that really, like, help you attach to the characters more. And it's just not all doom and gloom, because this is a horrifying situation that the characters live in, and maybe a little too relatable, if we're just being frank, given the state of the world at the moment. But it's a nice reprieve.
Well, and yeah, and it's a little obvious what the twist is going to be in this episode involving Boomy. But
yeah, no, it's crazy obvious, like right from the bat. But and like, I guess I don't know. I haven't read like any critiques of it, but I could imagine someone watching this for the first time and be like, "Why didn't he notice?"
Yeah.
But whatever. It's cute.
Hey,
It's nice.
I can't blame a kid for not being able to understand that his friend was going to age by 100 years.
I guess, yeah. Oh, I guess age works differently in the Avatar world too, because they just take care of the Earth better.
I have no idea. That was one thing, not to get ahead of myself, but one thing about Legend of Korra was I was a little annoyed with how many people from the original series were still alive. But hey, you know.
We'll definitely get to that, for sure.
What are you going to do?
Yeah. But no, I mean, it's a solid first 5 episodes, some real high points, no real low points, and I hope everyone keeps tuning in because I have never been this excited to do a retrospective series, and I will convince you to do James Cameron's. I feel it in my bones that we will do that.
There is no way it will happen during this. Look, man, it's just not going to happen.
I don't know. I got a good feeling.
I want to do a James Cameron retrospective, is the thing. And I want to save that for when the Avatar sequels are coming out. Also, if the world really is going to fall apart this year, I don't want to waste that time watching Avatar, the movie.
It's a good movie. It's a good movie.
I know, but it's not a movie. If I can watch anything else, I'd rather have my time. I'd rather watch this show. I've already resigned to the fact that we're going to have to watch the last Airbender movie.
Watch it be like some secret masterpiece.
Nope.
Hey, I've been on board with Shyamalan for a while again, so who knows?
Look, as someone who was down, who is against, like, I did not enjoy Glass, I did not enjoy Split, those movies look like fucking the Magnificent Ambersons compared to The Last Airbender. Like, it's Last Airbender, like, I can't even blame Shyamalan for it. It's so bad. But
no, there's clearly like other issues with that film.
Yeah, it feels like there's like a million things went wrong with it. But yeah, we'll get to it. And I'm excited to continue and watch more. I'm really just looking forward to watching all these episodes
for the 15th time. But next time we will be talking about the next 5 episodes: Chapter 6, Imprisoned; Chapter 7, The Spirit World; Avatar Roku; The Waterbending Scroll; and Chapter 10, Jet, which is also directed by Dave Filoni again. So, everyone watch those. We'll be back next week.
And before we go, I would like to introduce a segment I would like to do for this retrospective. And this segment is called Matt Takes BuzzFeed Avatar The Last Airbender Quizzes.
Oh my god.
I feel like to bring it back to the Tumblr era.
Okay.
I have to take a quiz every episode to figure out so the one I chose for tonight is which Avatar The Last Airbender character are you? From 2015. Are you ready, Diego?
I'm ready.
Ready for this just juicy shit?
Just do it.
All right, first question. Which quote-unquote Avatar animal do you wish were real? The koala sheep, the dragon, the saber-tooth moose lion, the sky bison, the turtle duck, or the badger mole?
Sky bison.
I feel like I'm going to have to go with sky bison. I agree with you, Diego, because... man, I wonder what character I'm going to end up being. Which of these would you want for lunch? I can't do this because it's like a visual thing. Mm-hmm. One looks like pixie sticks. The other looks like soups. One's clearly sushi. One's got an avocado. I want to pick the one that looks like it has chicken in it.
God.
Don't know what that means. Which Avatar line do you quote the most? Oh, you know how I'm always quoting Avatar around you.
Oh, yeah, naturally. Yeah.
Ha 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 ha. Gravity. That's rough, buddy. I am the Melon Lord. Pride is not the opposite of shame, but it's sorts. I will never turn my back on people who need me. Well, I definitely say that all the time. So, you know me.
Oh, yeah.
Always standing by people, so I'm going to pick that one. If you were on Team Avatar, remember how we called them Team Avatar back in the day? You remember? Called the gang Team Avatar, Diego?
I called them the gang.
Yeah, well, they're called Team Avatar, apparently.
Okay.
Where would you go for your vacation? The Western Air Temple? I feel like that'd be a bad idea.
Yeah, no.
Omashu? Anywhere with good shopping. Ba Sing Se, Ember Island, or the Northern Water Tribe capital. All of these are bad choices. I'm gonna go with
Island.
Okay, I was gonna go with Omashu because they have the fun slides.
Oh yeah, but they get. Never mind.
I'll defer to you, Diego.
Okay.
I don't think Ember Island was a great place, but
no. They got nice stuff there.
All right, who's your favorite fighting duo? Zuko and Aang, Aang and Katara, Sokka and Suki, Toph and herself.
Toph and herself.
I'm not even gonna read the rest. That's the one.
Yeah. That's good.
Oh, good lord, this quiz is a lot longer than I thought it was. I'm sorry. Which unnamed character do you want a backstory for? Crewman with a birthday, foaming.
What is this?
I don't know. Foaming mouth guy. Remember him?
Oh yeah.
Cabbage merchant. The Ember Island players.
There you go.
Sparky Boom Man. Or Foo Cuddly Poops. I don't remember that one.
Oh, I remember Foo Cuddly Poops.
Oh, I'm excited to revisit that. I'm going with the Ember Island players.
All right.
Because I just want to see what they're doing when the war's over and they're no longer promoting propaganda. Pick an Appa to love. Oh, it's all these like meme pictures of Appa. I'm gonna look the one where he looks the most defeated. Okay, we finished the quiz.
Yay! What'd you get?
We got Toph. I don't know how, honestly.
I don't either.
Here's why. You're comfortable in your own skin, and you've learned how to be independent and confident. Well, that sums me up perfectly. Though it wasn't easy, definitely. You don't take BS from anyone. Oh, never mind. This is perfect. And everyone knows not to try. Yeah. Sometimes you wish you could show affection more easily. I don't know about that. But you know the people who really matter understand that you're trying.
Just for the record, you will meet Toph in later seasons of Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
If you have not
watch
seen
the
show
show
for the first time.
Watch the show.
I know, but like, if someone's just like, "Oh, I'll check out the first 5 episodes so I can listen to this podcast," and you're like, "Oh, we got Toph," they're not going to know Toph.
You know what I just realized doing this?
What?
We replaced BuzzFeed quizzes with zodiac signs.
Matt.
This is how everyone's zodiac reads. Whenever everyone's like, "Oh, I'm a Cancer and my moon is in the whatever," it means I'm a classy I don't know. Like,
I'm not trying to drag people for being into that because, like, I think it's kind of cool, but I also don't understand it at all, and I don't intend to try. So
I'm not trying to drag anyone either, but I think it's silly and ridiculous.
My sign is Gemini Man Will Smith CGI clone rising.
Yeah.
Yeah. Matt, where can the people find you?
Wait, is it in high frame rate too? Wasn't that movie
Yes.
shot in high frame rate?
It was shot in like 120 FPS. It's beautiful.
Yeah. How'd that go?
I love it.
What's that guy up to?
Oh, Matt, where can the people find you?
I'm just glad this is how we ended it. I'm an Emperor OTN1 at Twitter.com. Oh no.
You can find me at Twitter.com.
I'm
at
gonna
Diego Crespo. Check out
I
the
am
Waffle Press.
loving this.
You got the Waffle Press on Twitter, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, and Patreon. You can get other episodes of this Avatar Retrospective, the last Legend of the Last Retrospective. It's not actually the last retrospective, just to know everyone. Early on Patreon, so go check that out and check out other stuff we're working on too. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We have been professionally unprofessional.
Water. Earth. Fire. Air. My grandmother used to tell me stories about the old days, a time of peace, when the Avatar kept balance between the Water Tribes, Earth Kingdom, Fire Nation, and Air Nomads. But that all changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Only the Avatar mastered all 4 elements. Only he could stop the ruthless firebenders. But when the world needed him most, he vanished. 100 years have passed, and the Fire Nation is nearing victory in the war. 2 years ago, my father and the men of my tribe journeyed to the Earth Kingdom to help fight against the Fire Nation, leaving me and my brother to look after our tribe. Some people believe that the Avatar was never reborn into the Air Nomads and that the cycle is broken, but I haven't lost hope. I still believe that somehow, the Avatar will return to save the world.